Coming up on Diplomatic Channel, new South African President Cyril Ramaphosa vows to fight corruption in his first State of the Nation speech. Ethiopia declares a national state of emergency one day after Prime Minister Pt1 resigns. And US President Donald Trump says his election campaign did nothing wrong as the FBI indicts 13 Russians for alleged election meddling. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Temitope Fagbemi. We begin this week in South Africa, where new South African President Cyril Ramaphosa has spoken of a new dawn in his first State of the Nation address. Delivering the key speech at the National Assembly in Cape Town, Mr. Ramaphosa invoked the memory of late Nelson Mandela, saying South Africa must begin the long walk he started.
President Cyril Ramaphosa says South Africa faces tough decisions to boost economic growth after years of stagnation. In a State of the Nation speech aimed at both global markets and the core supporters of the ruling African National Congress ANC, the former union leader promised to transform the mining sector, fight corruption, and speed up the redistribution of land to black citizens.
We are determined to build a society defined by decency and integrity that does not tolerate the plunder of public resources nor the theft by corporate criminals of the hard-earned savings of ordinary people.
Mr. Ramaphosa added that his government is committed to policy certainty and consistency, in contrast to his scandal-plagued predecessor Jacob Zuma, who was criticized for policy shifts and unpredictable cabinet changes that rocked domestic financial markets and confounded investors. The 65-year-old was sworn in as president on Thursday, February the 15th, after Zuma reluctantly resigned on orders of the ANC.
I have therefore come to the decision to resign as President of the Republic with immediate effect. Countrymen, ladies and gentlemen, I thank you very much for your attention. Ngiyabonga, ngiyalebuga.
In a 30-minute farewell address to the nation, 75-year-old Zuma said he disagreed with the way the ANC had shoved him towards an early exit after the election of Cyril Ramaphosa as party president in December, but would accept its orders. For some South Africans, his resignation was long overdue.
I think it's a fantastic day. I think there is victory in the air, and I think it's a victory for South Africa. The man's time was long overdue, and I'm ecstatic for him leaving. Yeah.
The road back to prosperity and self-respect will be long and hard in a nation so divided by race and inequality. But analysts say Mr. Zuma's exit proves the enduring strength of South Africa's institutions, from the courts to the media and the constitution.
In East Africa, a national state of emergency has been declared in Ethiopia just one day after the unexpected resignation of Prime Minister Pt1. A statement by the state broadcaster said the move is necessary to stem a wave of anti-government protest. On Thursday, Prime Minister Desalegn said he had made his decision to stand down in the hope that it will help end the years of unrest and political upheaval. The political demonstrations in Ethiopia began in Oromia in November 2015. Protests later sprung up in the Amara region. Oromia and Amara are the homelands of the country's two biggest ethnic groups. Many people in these communities feel that they have been marginalized since the current government took power in 1991. So what's with the wave of resignation sweeping across Africa? First, it was Zimbabwe's Robert Mugabe in November 2017, then Jacob Zuma of South Africa, and now Ethiopian Prime Minister Pt1. Is Africa's democracy witnessing a transformation? I asked my guest on the program, Dr. Dakwa Thomas, that question. Thanks for coming on Diplomatic Channel.
Thank you for having me on the program.
Now, first, Jacob Zuma resigned after much pressure from the ANC. Then the Ethiopian Prime Minister surprisingly resigned. Is Africa witnessing a new democratic era? Are we moving away from the days of do-or-die politics?
Well, the trends show that this is exactly what is happening. When you look at the dynamics of African politics these days, you will discover that the people are getting more actively involved in the kind of government, in effecting a change in effecting a change in their government, in any bad government. I mean, removing the bad government and replacing it with a very good government. So they are being conscious, they are now conscious of what governance is all about, and they are using their personal experiences, personal tribulations to determine what what role to play in politics, in African politics. It's not about whether I have voted for you or not. It's about if a government is bad. The tendency is there that you may not even have to wait for the next 4 years or 5 years. It depends on how they can bear the situation on ground or what the experiences they are going through. If they feel that, look, this government does not deserve another term, they can use the ballot box to determine that. But if during second term or even first term, 2 years, 3 years in government, they want a change in their own situation, because the government or governance is all about them, which means you have to provide the basic necessities of life for them: shelter, food, security, education, and all this. So, and then employment. The people are now conscious of their own responsibilities, their civic responsibilities towards, towards putting a very good government in power. So with these two cases, or these two scenarios, we can now see that those who believe that they can sit tight in power will now be very conscious of what the people will likely do to them in case they decide to stay put in power.
Now, this new consciousness that you say the people now have, could it be traced to the Arab Spring? Do you think other countries are also taking a cue from what happened during the Arab Spring?
Social factors, social mechanisms which precipitate change of government may be spontaneous. It's not necessarily a case of historical antecedent as such. Otherwise you can now say you want to trace it to French Revolution. You want to trace, no. It depends on it depends on the prevailing circumstances, you understand, that will now determine. Even the Arab Spring you are talking about, the Tunisian case, it was a spontaneous thing. So if they have been asking the person to resign, the president to resign, and he fails to resign, then the people can on their own, just find a way to play an active role. I'm not saying that I'm encouraging revolution or revolt or, rebellion, but they start with protests. So in the course of doing the protest, the various institutions responsible for effecting change in government, because there are mechanisms, there are procedures through which a president can be removed. It's not necessarily that he must spend the 4 years or 8 years. No. If he's not performing, there are constitutional provisions made for such removal. So if the people are protesting, it's a way of sending signals to the various arms of government that are responsible for this kind of change, that should effect the change. And if they are not doing it, then it means all the various levels can be sacked by the people.
Now, let's look at the manner in which Jacob Zuma was forced out by his party, the ANC. It's quite reminiscent of the way Thabo Mbeki resigned in 2008. Has the ANC set a precedent that could likely affect President Ramaphosa in future? Sure.
The ANC has set a precedent in the sense that, in fact, two precedents now, in the sense that if a government or the leader of the party is involved in corrupt practices, not just tendencies now, but corrupt practices, and they have facts, they have the evidence, they have enough sufficient evidence to believe that he's guilty, I think within themselves, that's the structure, that's the power of the structure. They can effect a change. Which means that this particular person, Cyril Ramaphosa, has to learn, or has to avoid the banana peel. Otherwise, it too will go the way of the two others. And the only way you can avoid that kind of situation is to be focused. It's very simple. People are saying we don't have jobs. We need employment, we need this, we need that. Government is all about that. Ensuring that people live in comfort, ensuring that people enjoy their lives, ensuring that people have access to basic things of life. So if you are not doing this, then what are you doing? So if you continue to siphon or to embezzle money, and money which ordinarily should serve the generality of the people, let's say about 80% of the people, now is being conserved by just 3%, you and your family. And then it's wasted, because at the end of the day, it's not even being utilized within the system. So what happens? The people will revolt against you. But if this one, if Ramaphosa also engages in this kind of corrupt practices, because I've read his business profile, his wealth profile, I'm impressed. But it does not really matter, because you can see that in Africa, greed persists even among those who are the wealthiest in Africa. So if this one should be involved in corrupt tendencies, corrupt practices and everything, and it goes the way of the two others, then it shows that the black man has a problem.